Hey everyone, and thanks for tuning in today to the Driven to Better podcast, where everyone you'll hear is driven to make business better. I am your host, Justin Sisley, and on the show today is James Lloyd of 100 Health. James is going to take us along on his journey to use what he learned working in the healthcare field to change the way healthcare providers store and access data. So stay tuned, we've got a great show coming up. Jordan and I have on today James from, well, he's got various roles right now, but I think your main role is with a company called 100 Health, right, James?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so let's start out by having you tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now. Give us kind of your elevator pitch on that.
Sure, yeah. So 100 Health grew out of a budding ecosystem of healthcare IT startups here in Madison, Wisconsin. So our initial approach was to really sort of see how we could take the talent that's coming out of some of the large employers that are bringing folks here, and as well as the university, and really focus them in on the healthcare challenges for today. So we started around an idea of being an incubator and really sort of explored that with about 7 companies, ended up realizing for a few reasons that I'll probably get into later that didn't work out. But as going through that process, we found some technology that all of these startups needed, and we've really sort of rallied behind that idea of creating tools for healthcare IT startups. And that's really what we're focusing in on now. And my role within 100 Health, I'm one of the 3 co-founders. I guess I'd call myself the technical co-founder, so I do a lot of the software development and managing the development team.
Okay. So how long have you personally been an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I guess officially, I've been an entrepreneur, working in a less than 3-person company for about a year and a half. Though unofficially, I think my entrepreneurial days got started pretty young. I remember whenever I was in high school, I stole the list of the groups that were allowed to fundraise. And then I went to Costco and bought a whole bunch of candy bars and went around and pretended that I was like the sophomore cheerleader, raising money for the sophomore cheerleaders. And just kept it all. So it started pretty early in life, and then also I think really sort of as a professional, my entrepreneurial days got started while I was at a relatively large company here in Madison called Epic. But I think what I was doing there would be called intrapreneurship, basically finding problems and solving them in an entrepreneurial way, but inside of a large company.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you know, has the statute of limitations gone up on your impersonating a charity yet? Is this going to incriminate you?
I think that was before. Well, it was certainly before I was 18. I don't know. Does that get wiped out? I'll repay the $30 I made.
You'll probably be okay. All right.
James, what did you do with all the profit?
I probably just spent it on more candy and then ate it. I don't even remember.
All right, so you've kind of been at it. You've been shuffling around, and I know we talked pre-interview that you kind of have your hand in a few different projects right now. So 100 Health is kind of your main thing. Is that your first thing, or what would you call your first real venture besides the whole candy thing?
Yeah. So really, my first foray into sort of creatively solving a problem, and I think that's really what entrepreneurship is finding a problem that needs to be solved that doesn't have a proven business model behind it yet, and I think that really happened while I was at Epic. So the first real main project that I took on there, or that I sort of helped create, was a communication platform between all of Epic's customers and Epic Central, and that really was kind of the first time that somebody had created a project just because they created a licensable product for Epic that somebody just thought up. It didn't come from the top down. So that was a sort of a 2-year process for me, working on basically nights and weekends on that. But that really sort of set my sales in motion that way towards just find the problem that needs to be solved and figure out how you add value, and then don't worry about the people who are gonna squash it or ask for forgiveness later rather than permission. So that was really the direction that was really the project that set the direction for me. In terms of sort of since the time that after I left Epic, So I left there to join another healthcare IT startup here in town. Spent about 6 months there, and then sort of exited, helped them get their first product out the door, and then left there, and then sort of experimented with a few other companies and industries and different models after that, and then landed on 100 Health back in February of 2014 is when we got started.
Okay. So for those listening that don't know, and we've mentioned it in several episodes so far, mostly because 100 State is where we conduct the interviews, which is a co-working space in Madison, Wisconsin, and 100 Health is kind of an offshoot from 100 State, made up of 100 State members, right?
Yeah, so 2 of our 3 co-founders at 100 Health were actually co-founders of 100 State as well.
Okay. So it's very, very closely linked, and that's kind of the naming scheme where it comes from. Just for everybody's information, and is that something you're doing? You are full-time now, right? You're not doing any other sort of job working for someone else?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we're gonna go into a little more depth then and talk about how you began.
Yeah, James. So you mentioned it was a frigid day in Madison in February of 2014. Can you take us back to the day when you guys just started that 100 Health was a good idea? What pushed you over the edge from, hey, this health IT accelerator might be a good idea, to, hey, let's do this?
Yeah. So this was it was sort of Nico's brainchild. Sort of developed over the winter of, sort of leading into February of 2014, and Nico and I had been talking about it for a while. And then whenever we found Luke, our third co-founder, that was when the team really gelled, and we knew we had all the pieces. Nico and I are both sort of scatterbrained, and Luke is definitely the one who ties us all together and is the project manager, and was like we found our missing puzzle piece whenever he joined the team. And so that was really beneficial to have those 3 folks all together working on things.
Sure. And now, are you guys are you taking any investment, or is this something that you're kind of bootstrapping right now?
Yeah. So we're actually in the process of raising a round of investment. After I left Epic, I had personally been bootstrapping myself and doing some things on the side to pay the rent. And actually, a lot of that has come to inform the products that we're building right now. I was doing some consulting to healthcare IT startups, so a lot of the information that I gained while I was doing that has been influential in what we're building as a product now.
And then as for the companies you guys are working with, is that happening organically, or are you having to do much outreach to kind of get in touch with the health IT startups?
Yeah, it's interesting. So some of the companies that we're working with, we're definitely reaching out to. So we kind of know where to look for the types of startups that we want to work with. So we're looking to companies that have recently graduated from other healthcare IT accelerators, as well as those that have worked with some EHRs. EHRs is electronic health records. Sure. Worked with some, but maybe are looking to work with others and need help in that space. So those are the 2 ways that we're doing outreach. But definitely a lot has come through our mentor network and through our friends in the healthcare IT space. Once you sort of, it's actually a very, very small world within the software development side of healthcare IT. So,
sure.
So everybody sort of knows each other. There's at least one connection removed, and we've been able to get tied in with a lot of folks, and actually investors are a really great way to make those connections as well. If you're making a product for startups, oftentimes the investors in those other startups know what they're looking for and know where their problems are, and can point us towards their portfolio companies that need our help.
Nice.
That's a good way to do it. Find somebody who's already got all the connections. That's perfect.
Yeah, and we actually, just to add a little bit more there, we've sort of, it was not at all intentional, but we've sort of ended up getting a lot of benefit out of our initial attempt to be an incubator. So, in the process of doing that, we sort of formed a mentor board of probably about 70 people from all different sorts of types of jobs, to, CIOs of health systems, to investors, to nurses, all over the spectrum. And those folks we continue to maintain that relationship despite the fact that we're not starting 10 or 15 companies a year, but we're still maintaining that relationship, and it's been really influential for us.
So we're gonna transition now, and you had told us earlier that you had tried some things and they didn't quite work out the way you envisioned when you first started out doing the whole 100-state product. So let's kind of dive into that. Tell us about that time when you lead us into it, I guess. Tell us what you were doing, and then tell us about the actual time when you realized, hey, this isn't working.
Yeah. So sort of the genesis of 100 Health was as Nico and I were sort of sitting around looking at the community that we were building at 100 State. We saw that we got up to about 100 members at 100 State, our co-working space, and about 30 or 35 of those folks had some sort of background in healthcare or computer science, or had some sort of skill that was a very niche skill that could be applied to healthcare. And especially the folks that had sort of operational understanding of the healthcare ecosystem, namely the folks that were coming out of Epic, they often were coming here and then wanting to do their own startup, but not really knowing where to go, and so they end up scratching their own itch and make some sort of social media thing, or social networking, or something like that, and not really planning to exploit their background. So we wanted to create sort of an ecosystem that facilitated these folks to remain in healthcare and to leverage that experience that they had in the next thing that they created. So that was sort of the problem that we were trying to solve whenever we went down the incubator route. We then sort of started looking at, all right, so we've got all this talent here. Who are sort of the top folks that we can start to build a company around, take their expertise, take their knowledge, pair them up with the right team, and help them start a company. So we started that with about 7 different groups. One of the main challenges was, we were starting really early, so these people didn't even have companies yet. It was just a founder that we wanted to start a company around. And so we were full-time, and they were very much not full-time. Oftentimes they were sort of doing this on the nights and weekends, which meant that we were doing probably 90% of the work, and they were coming in and sort of figuring out what the heck we did all week on Saturday or something like that. So they didn't, the ownership structure didn't really line up. And then the other piece of it that we had some issues with was around the funding side of things. So a very traditional accelerator will take 6% for some chunk of money, maybe $20,000-$25,000, and that's sort of a very standard model. We were planning on taking a similar size chunk, but at a much earlier stage, and not for any sort of financial investment, but for sweat equity, basically. But then as we ran out the numbers, we realized, all right, this is before you get any funding. You're going to get a seed round. You're going to get a Series A. Our 100 Health stake is going to get diluted down to like 1%, if that. And then any investors who come in to help support 100 Health, they're getting fractions of that 1%. And really, the financial model didn't really work out at the percent of equity that we were looking at taking. And for it to work out, we would have had to take in something like 30%, which I think would have even further demotivated the folks who were trying to build these companies around. So that was sort of the whole swirl of what happened back between sort of February and June of how we were working through all this stuff.
Okay. So now that you've kind of pivoted from that point, what are you struggling with now? What's the new challenge that you guys are experiencing?
Yeah. So our team is it's me. I'm on the software development side. We've got Nico, who's sort of on the business development sales side, and Luke, who also helps out with sort of the project management, operations, and sales. And we've also got 2 developers. And I think with a team of 5 people, I think the biggest thing for me is juggling the business with the product, right? So as a software developer, I just want to build the thing, right? And I just want to make something cool. But to run a successful business, there's a lot more that you need to think about, and so having to pull myself away from the terminal and from Sublime Text to actually figure out how we're going to do the documentation, what insurance we need, what payroll, and all those sorts of mundane administrative tasks that a business has to take care of. I think that's probably the the biggest challenge is sort of just balancing all of that and keeping myself motivated even through the crappy stuff.
Yeah, it's you get to the point where and it's kind of from that book, The Lean Startup. I don't know if you've ever, or not Lean Startup, sorry, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Mm-hmm. And he talks a lot about you need to work on your business instead of in your business. But there comes a point when you have a small team where somebody's got to work. Somebody's got to figure out just the little things, the little ticky-tacky things. Right. And that becomes a challenge because then you're not really working on your business. You're just doing administrative stuff. So I can definitely see how that'd be tough. Yep. But let's talk about some of the more positive things now and kind of go into what's working for you now.
Yeah. So James, if you could take us through something that you're doing currently that is really working for 100 Health, we'd love to hear about it.
Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. I want to break in quickly just to give a quick shout out and thank you to our sponsors, starting with MadisonInABox.com. It's the perfect gift for anyone with a connection to the great city that I call home. Someone who used to live here, is a university alum, or maybe just someone who would appreciate a taste of our local culture. Send friends, family, and loved ones the gift of Madison in a box. Head over to MadisonInABox.com to learn more about this unique gift idea. Our other sponsor for the show is Fruitera.co. Get ready to blend organic smoothies in under 30 seconds. And the best part is they're shipped right to your door. There's several flavors to choose from, so head over to Fruitera.co to learn more. And while you're there, drop them an email. Say, hey, thanks for sponsoring the Driven to Better podcast. I really appreciate it. All right, back to the show.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that that I love about what I'm doing right now is just that I'm surrounded by an awesome team. So all four of so Nico, Luke, and one of our developers, our full-time developer, TC, we all met at Epic. TC and I actually did a ton of entrepreneurial projects together at Epic, and so he and I knew we worked well together, and so this is it's fantastic to be able to work with him again on the other side of that. So I think at a very high level, I think the thing that we're working on that I love is just the atmosphere and the community and the team. In particular, I'm really enjoying. So TC is located in Colorado right now, and so initially I was sort of uncertain about how well we could collaborate remotely, and we've been doing a lot of Google Hangouts and using different sort of cloud-based IDEs to really sort of pair program remotely, and it's sort of the first time experience for me doing that, and it's been fantastic. Just the ability to collaborate with someone who's 1,000 miles away. That's been really fun.
Yeah. So you got the team in place. Things are going well. Any big plans for the future for 100 Health that you can tell the listeners about?
Yeah. So we're in the process of finalizing our fundraising, and I think once we get that behind our belts, we'll be sort of full speed ahead on customer acquisition, and that's really what we're looking forward to. Luke and Nico have been doing a lot of the fundraising effort, and they're, I think I'm excited to get their efforts pointed 100% towards sales and really see where our new customers drive us. And, we're very much taking sort of the lean startup approach as well, only doing as much as our current customers are requesting, and then really looking forward from a product development standpoint to finding out more about what hypothetical future customers would want and see where they drive the direction of the product.
Brings up a point that I want to bring out. Based on our last interview, we had Jerry from Restrepo Leather, who you might have run into at 100 State as well. He had a very much physical product-based business, and we talked a little bit about walking that line between production and sales. And it seems like in your case, it's kind of a similar line, but more towards features and customer acquisition. How do you guys tackle that? I mean, do you try and build as much as you can and then acquire customers, or do you try and get customers first and then build whatever they might be asking for?
Yeah. So I guess my leading into starting sort of this developer tools side of 100 Health and all the products that we're building for startups right now. I think I mentioned this before. I did some consulting to healthcare IT startups that needed help with integration and reporting and a few other sort of key topics that tend to be a little difficult for for startups because the healthcare IT infrastructure is and architecture is a little antiquated. And so helping, sort of through that consulting process, I sort of did that, 6 or 8 times and sort of started to see the 80% case of what all these companies are asking for. And in doing so, that sort of informed our sort of alpha product, if you want to call it that. And so that's what we've built out so far. And I sort of have a general roadmap of where we could go in the future, but I think it'll really depend on what that next set of customers want. Whenever we can say, here is our feature set, and somebody can say, all right, I want those 4 things plus I want one more thing, then we build that 5th thing. And so I think that can be that's sort of how we're gonna approach the next 6 months or so.
Okay. Do you have problems with feature creep, or do you pretty much stick to the roadmap and not let anybody get too far off course?
Yeah, we have a pretty good. I mean, so it's just it's basically just me and TC working on these main features, and so we have a pretty good approach to if we ever spend more than 15 minutes talking about a single feature and what all it should contain, we just say. We just choose the least complicated thing and move on with our day and just sort of document that we had some thoughts and we should come back to it later. But we're really trying to keep it as simple as possible. And so I'm sure that'll come up along the way, especially in healthcare. There tends to be excessive configurability. So each health system, each startup wants their own thing, wants to do it their own way, which can lead to really, really complicated sort of admin dashboard panels and things like that. So trying to be a little bit more opinionated about the structure of things, and having a little bit more backbone when it comes to how we work with different health systems and different startups, I think will help us stay a little bit simpler as well.
Yeah, there's a reason that Apple does as well as it does.
Right.
The scroll wheel on the iPad was just infinitely more simple to use than anything anybody had seen before. So there's definitely use cases for that and that have proven successful. So, Jordan, are you mowing the lawn?
I am, actually. So I'm calling in from the outdoors. Yeah, it's Chris. My apologies if some of my mower feedback is getting caught in the mic.
Yeah, no worries. That's fine. We're doing this for real. This is not done in a studio. We're doing the true bootstrapper way here. We still got to mow the lawn, even though we're entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we're actually in the moo room of 100 State right now.
Oh.
We recently named all the conference rooms. We've also got Thunderdome. And then something else. I don't know.
Yeah, this is there's a desk in here and a light and a couple chairs. So this is the true bootstrapper way. This is what if you're listening and you haven't yet taken your leap into the entrepreneurial world, it's not as glamorous as some of the things you might see on TV. It's not all about investor parties at mansions in the valley out in California. It's a lot of just kind of sitting at a desk for hours on end. All right, well, we've got a lot of insight into how 100 Health runs. So we've got a few minutes left here, and I wanted to ask you, because we talked pre-interview about you having your hand in a couple other things, some side projects. What's one of those side projects that you're really excited about right now?
Yeah. So over the past, really probably 2 years or so, I've really sort of grown fond of the city of Madison and really decided that I wanted to plant some roots here. And one of the things that has, that I've sort of latched onto is getting involved in various ways with the city government and just sort of general civic engagement. And so some of those are in the flavor of what they call civic hacking, which is taking publicly available data sets and making tools and applications on top of them that the general public can use and better understand their community and the city that they live in. And I've also been, so coming from the software developer side, been able to help advise a few city departments on how they could build the best tools and find the right technology that they need. And so one sort of personal project that I made along the way is called muniqa.org. And it sort of came out of a conversation that I was a part of, where the Madison Public Health Department had a conversation over the phone with the Portland, Oregon Public Health Department, and it was really influential to both sides. So there were problems that both sides have been thinking about. They had their own unique ideas, and both sides learned a ton from having that conversation. And afterwards, I came to learn that conversation was sort of 3 months in the works, and they had not really communicated before that. And being a software developer, my immediate thought was, well, Stack Overflow solves this problem for us every day as software developers. We ask questions, and then sort of asynchronously, the community answers the questions. And so I created MuniQA, which is basically a clone of Stack Overflow. It's a question and answer platform, where with the intent of having cities being able to ask questions and having folks from that same department in a different city answer that question. And so we've got some really cool partnerships coming out of that with the League of Wisconsin Municipalities right now, and hopefully the National League of Cities, which are two sort of nonprofit organizing bodies for city government folks. So really looking forward to pushing that out.
Okay, so it's the Yahoo Answers of municipalities.
Right. It's actually pretty similar to Quora. People might be familiar with that.
Yeah.
So basically, you can ask a question, put tags on it. People can upvote, downvote your question. You can have multiple answers to a question, and people can upvote and downvote each one of those answers as well.
Okay, very cool. All right, well, that wraps up kind of the meat and potatoes section. We're going to move on to our final section of the interview here, which is kind of a short answer. Just some questions we got for you that we really think would help our listeners out. Maybe you can provide some inspiration for them based on who your biggest inspiration is, either business-wise or life-wise.
Yeah. So in sort of prepping for the interview, I thought about this one quite a bit. And I think there's some sort of standard answers that I'm sure somebody else is going to give, like a Steve Jobs or an Elon Musk or somebody like that. But really, and I thought about it. I don't wake up and think like, how am I going to be like Elon Musk today? But really, the biggest inspiration I think for me is the 100-state community that I'm in on a day-to-day basis. So I come here and I'm surrounded by 100 of my friends who are all going through the same problems, dealing with the same things that I am. And, I watch them every day putting in 12, 16 hours each day, and it's sort of inspirational to me. They're passionate about it. And also we have sort of as a community some accountability to each other. We all want to be sort of the rising tide, lifts all ships kind of thing. We all want to support each other. And I think definitely my answer would be just the general 100-state community.
And you're not the first to say that, actually. I know you're trying to be a little more unique there, but sorry to burst your bubble. But it really drives the point home to people who are listening. If you're kind of thinking about taking that leap into entrepreneurialism, or you're very early on in those stages, it is so important to find that community, because those people are going to encourage you just by being around them. I mean, you don't even need to necessarily have conversations with all these people every single day. Just seeing the drive and the motivation that people have, being around people like that is only going to do you well. Jim Rohn always said, and it's one of my favorite quotes, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to raise that average, you need to find those 5 people who are really going to inspire you and make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. So let's go into kind of one of the fun questions we have, a nice hypothetical. Let's say that 100 Health suddenly finds itself with $100,000. I know you guys are raising funding, but this is something where you don't need to trade investment for it. It's a windfall of cash, let's say. What would you guys do with that $100,000, let's say, within the next week or two here?
Yeah, so the first thing, our kegerator currently doesn't work, so that needs fixed.
Yep.
And then, but realistically, I think what we would spend that money on is finding better resources for our current developers, as well as maybe bringing on more developers. I think being at a point now where we have a roadmap for the next 2 years, it's just sort of pedal to the metal and seeing how quickly we can get all this stuff done, and I'm excited to just sort of grow the team and get things done as quickly as possible. So, maybe not the fun answer, but that's the truth of it.
That's what people need to hear. I mean, it's there is kegerator.
Yeah.
stuff involved.
If any of the listeners to the podcast, if anybody listening to this is actually like a kegerator consultant, I'd be, we'd be happy to bring you on part-time to help us fix our kegerator.
Yeah, if anybody knows a kegerator mechanic, I'll put it out there right now. We'll interview them on the podcast. We'll get you some publicity for your kegerator repair facility. So give us a shout. Find us on driventobetter.com. We'll ask you here. I'm a big fan of reading, and I know a lot of people in the entrepreneurial world are, and there's a quote out there that says leaders are readers. Find myself reading far too many books sometimes, not finishing them. Is there a book out there that you've read that really inspired you that you think is the most useful in your kind of entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. So I've actually got, I guess 3 that I'll talk about, and they're all sort of taking up different sides of sort of the same. They're all sort of taking different angles on things. So one is definitely the Lean Startup. It's kind of our Bible, if you will. It sort of drives our day-to-day and sort of our overall philosophy, and just a general approach to things. Second one is Start With Why by Simon Sinek. So that really influences the way I and the rest of our team sort of thinks about problems from a high level and how we interact with customers and our clients and our partners and all of that. So that's been really influential in our communication and our sort of visioning. And then at a personal level, there's this book called The Happiness Advantage, which I think is fantastic. And it was more influential to me whenever I was inside of a big company. But the gist of it is, people are sort of trying to climb the ladder, and at the end of each rung, they see the next rung and they think, oh, if I get there, then I'll be happy. And that's sort of a recursive loop that doesn't end up with ever being happy. And so the idea is, make yourself happy first, and then everything will sort of fall out from that. And I myself and a few other friends sort of took that and really started to make that part of our daily lives, and it's really been helpful.
Yeah, I've read The Lean Startup. It is fantastic, and it's definitely a startup Bible for a lot of companies out there. Simon Sinek I've heard a lot about lately, so I'm definitely going to add that to my reading list. What's one other tool or resource, physical, electronic, or otherwise, that you find yourself using just about every day in your business?
Yeah, so I think the sort of most ingrained into our process is Asana, which is a project management tool. And that I don't think anything would really get done, without that. But I think one of the tools that I wanted to mention here is a Madison-based company called Manifestly, and I just want other people to hear about it because we're super excited to start to bake that into our process. So what they've done is basically, so there's this book called Checklist Manifesto that this awesome physician named Atul Gawande wrote, and it's all about the importance of making checklists. And they sort of read that book and turned it into a product, and they've got really great ways for having templates, recurring checklists that you can share with your customers to show the progress along an implementation path or something like that. So that's the one I'm really excited to get my hands on and really start to bake into our day-to-day.
And finally, how can people get in touch with you? If people want to know more about 100 State, maybe they're interested in being potential clients of yours, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, so you can email me. It's james@100health.it. Or I'm also on Twitter at JamesLloyd608. So that's at JamesLLOYD608.
Thanks again for joining us today. If you like what you hear, head over to driventobetter.com. Check out the show notes where we'll have everything we talked about here today. You can just search the name of the guest or their company, and that should pop up for you. While you're there, consider joining our DTB Plus Club. If you're not sure what that is, some of our guests will come to us with special offers, giveaways, contests, or discounts for our audience. The only way to get these is to become a member of the DTB Plus Club. In addition to bi-weekly emails with these offers, you'll also get exclusive access to the Plus Club private Facebook page. This is a place where like-minded entrepreneurs and soon-to-be entrepreneurs gather and exchange ideas, tips, and advice. Our guests talk a lot about having a support community, and the DTB Plus Club is just that. The best part is it's absolutely free to join, so head over to driventobetter.com now and check it out. Thanks again. See you next time.